I'm gonna show you the before and afters of what a $150,000 profit looks like. Okay, so right now we're in this house flip for the before. Now let me show you the after. Actually, it's the exact same. My fit changed, but the house, we didn't do anything to it. If you're new to my channel, my name's Ryan Pineda. I'm a real estate investor here in Las Vegas. I've flipped hundreds of homes. I've bought hundreds of rentals. I also own 6 businesses doing millions in profit every single year. So if you want to work with me and see all the ways I can help you, go to ryanpineda.com. Now, let's check out this house real quick. This is one of my house flips. Now, I've done other videos on my YouTube channel where I show you the befores and the afters. And I usually go and buy these entry-level homes that are hoarder houses, and we do this really nice rehab, and it's just got this big transformation. Well, as I showed you in the previous clip, this house is a little bit different. We literally didn't do anything, and we're gonna make one of our biggest profits of the year. So let me show you how exactly that happened and why. A lot of times, people think with fixing and flipping that it's all about the finishes, how well you renovate the house. And unfortunately for most people, they end up losing money that way because they're so worried about what it's gonna look like when instead they just really need to worry about the numbers. I've seen many people over renovate homes, spend $100,000 on a renovation when in reality they should have spent $50,000, or in this case, spend almost nothing. One thing I like to teach my students is that anytime you get a deal, you look at all the options and exit strategies with that home. The first thing you got to decide is, do I want to flip it? Second thing you can decide is, do I want to wholesale it? Do I want to keep it as a rental? Do I want to Airbnb it? All of these things are an option on every single deal. Many real estate investors or people who are looking at getting into real estate investing are too single-minded. They say, I am only a buy and hold guy. I only want rentals, or I'm only a wholesaler. I don't fix and flip. It's too much work. The reality is, my company has been so successful because we maximize every single deal. I don't go into any deal with any type of agenda of what I'm gonna do. We look at all the different exit strategies. So let's talk about how I evaluated this deal from start to finish. The very first thing we did was get the lead. So the seller ended up calling us from one of our TV commercials. I run a ton of them here in Las Vegas. I spend anywhere from $30,000 to $60,000 every single month on TV commercials. And one of the reasons I do that is because sellers will call us wanting to sell their home for cash. Well, this seller in particular owned this 5,000 square foot home as a second home. So they were barely using it. It was just the guy and his wife, and there was really no reason for them to even have it. Someone from my sales team came out here to meet the seller. They were out of state, and it was just a one-time appointment while they were in town. Initially, they wanted about $675,000 for the home, and we ended up getting it for $625,000. Now, this was 3 months ago. Since then, the market has gone up like crazy. And getting it at $625,000, we thought it was a fantastic deal, even at the current prices back then. And at that time, there were multiple strategies. The first thing we looked at was, how much do we think we could wholesale this for and make a profit? Well, just knowing what our buyers would pay and other people, we realized if we wholesaled it, we might be able to make about $20,000. There wasn't really a big demand for this property. And don't get me wrong, $20,000 is a lot of money. But for me, as somebody who knows all the other exit strategies, it wasn't a very good use of what we could do with this deal. And the reason that most flippers weren't willing to pay a lot is because they figured they would have to gut the whole place and fix it up perfectly. Gutting this whole entire 5,000 square foot place is gonna cost over $100,000 when it's all said and done. Now at the time, if a flipper was to do that, they could have probably got around $850,000 for this home. But for me, I looked at it and said, well, man, $100,000 is a really big project, and this house is not in bad shape. It's obviously not renovated to today's standards, but overall, this flooring is nice, the paint is fine. You know, this bathroom is a little suspect. You know, I personally wouldn't be happy with this bathroom, but there's nothing wrong with it. It's completely usable, everything works great. None of these tiles are even chipped, like it's in perfect condition. But Most buyers in this price range obviously want a renovated home. But here's the thing. The market is so hot right now and there's nothing under contract. So we have realized that we can get away with just selling homes as is like this and still make a lot of money. So when we ran our numbers and said, hey, what would happen if we sold this without putting any work into it? How much do we think we can make? And the comps said that we could probably get about $750,000. So for us, if we bought it for $625 and we know that we could just clean it up a little bit and still sell it for $750, we were gonna make a really good profit. So that's exactly what we did. We just bought it and the plan was to sell it almost as is. So we ended up putting about $13,000 into this house, which is extremely low for something over 5,000 square feet. We took the existing paint, which was white. We just redid it essentially in the entire house. There was some stucco work on the exterior that needed to be redone. And there was just little touch-up things. We had to trash out the house. We had to fix some light switches, some light bulbs, and just kind of all these little cosmetic things. One of the other things that we had to end up doing was fixing the pool. So the pool is actually really cool. Reminds me of the childhood slide that I used to have in my pool in the house I grew up in. But, you know, this is not something that's really in style today. People don't really build these rock pools anymore. Most people who would want a modern house will build a nice, sleek, modern pool. So for me, looking at it, it was like, well, the inside is pretty dated, but it's in great shape. This pool is cool, but you know, it's a dated style pool in really good shape. So it makes sense to just keep everything the same. Because here's the truth, there are two types of buyers. There's one who wants everything modern and new and renovated, and they're not gonna accept a renovated house inside there and then have this kind of old school looking pool. They want everything redone. And then there's the other type of buyer who just wants something that's really nice to live in. They don't really care about it being dated and not being, you know, in style. They actually like this pool. They like the look of it. So for us, it was like, why mix and match to have like a modern inside and then maybe a dated outside? You gotta go one or the other. And so we chose the easier route of just keeping everything the way it is. The other thing is, the buyers who like that more dated look are also probably wanting a bigger yard. And this house is almost on half of an acre. So when you think about it, it has all the attributes for a certain type of buyer, and that is why we kept it almost the way it is. Now that's how we evaluated the exit strategy as a flip. You know, renovate the whole thing or keep it as is. But there was the third option I talked about, which is keeping it as a rental. And initially, I was gonna keep it as a rental because I really like this area. It's super good, it's really nice, and I think that I could get a lot of cash flow by renting out this house. But once we went to go list the property, we realized that prices had gone up so much that it didn't make sense to keep this as a rental. Now, initially, as I said, we thought we could get about $750,000 selling this as is. If that ended up happening, after all of our money cost on the loan for this house, after our closing costs, the realtor fees, the $13,000 we put into it, we would have probably net, I don't know, around $60,000. And even though that's a really good profit for a flip, especially not really doing too much, I would have probably still wanted to keep it as a rental because I really like this area. But by the time we went to list it, we realized that comps had gone up significantly in just 3 months. And we saw that there were properties selling for $800 all the way to $825 in similar condition. So we decided to list it for $850,000. And even I thought that was a really high price for this home, but people just flooded to it. We had multiple offers on this house in its condition, and we ended up accepting one for $860,000. And assuming that goes through, we should make $150,000 on this house, doing almost no work and selling it in almost 3 months. And the reality is that's more than most people make in a year for very little risk and very little work. So when I tell people that real estate investing can change their life, I mean it. So when it comes to real estate investing, you have to realize that there are 2 ways to maximize your profit. You're either gonna do it on the front end by just getting a really good deal like this one, but you can also maximize it on the back end, picking the best exit strategy. Maybe it's wholesaling, maybe it's flipping it and totally renovating it, maybe it's selling it as is, or maybe it's keeping it as a rental. But by doing those two things at the best of your ability, you're gonna start making some really big profits in your business. And the cool thing is, this is just one of the 60 active flips we've got going on. So I love doing this. I love sharing it with you guys. If you wanna learn more about real estate investing, make sure you're subscribed to this channel and check out my next video.